Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of OA News Overtime. I'm Jordan Hill with Justin Lee. As always, Justin.
Jordan.
Throwing it back to Zoom. Going the Zoom route. How this podcast was formed, baby.
I'm slightly under the weather, so we're social distancing. We're doing what we can. I was on vacation and came back with something, as one does. Totally contagious. So we're back to Zoom here as I recover.
As Justin's on the mend, but we knew we were not going to let it stop us from podcasting. There's a lot to talk about. And a lot to try to tackle. We'll talk a little bit about Auburn's bowl game. We'll talk about SUNY Lee making some more news. We'll talk about Auburn men's basketball. But first, Justin, let's start with the topic that's really been at the forefront for Auburn football the last couple of weeks. The offensive coordinator position, Mike Bobo, is not going to be retained. We already knew that. We're still waiting to hear who the next coordinator is going to be. We had heard rumblings that we would hear something to start this week. We're recording on Wednesday, and they're still waiting to make a hire. What's sort of your read just from the outside? And, is there reason for concern? I mean, I have to say that I'm a little surprised we haven't heard anything yet, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's a bad thing.
I'm definitely on the outside as I slip in and out of consciousness every day, wondering, I wake up after a nap like, have they hired someone? No. No, just from watching, I mean, I don't know who's to say. It certainly doesn't seem good. It doesn't seem good. What it means is that Brian didn't have a plan, which, I mean, that can be good or bad. You can take that either way. But it's not like Brian was like, oh, we got to get Mike out of here so I can get this guy. But that's not to say it's a bad thing. I mean, that's, one of the philosophies that I've heard in coaching hires is like, you don't just wait until you don't do what Miami just did with Mario. That's messed up. No one does that. Don't do it. Miami was like, oh, we'll keep Manny if we can't get Mario. That, at least if all the reports are to be believed, you don't do that. Usually it's hey, is there a path forward with this coach that we have? And then if the answer is no, it doesn't really matter who's out there. It doesn't really matter who you're going to replace them with. You got to get rid of them and move forward. So it seems like that's what's happened here, just based on the timing. I mean, you're asking, what do we know just from the fact that nothing's happened so far? That's one of the things you can safely assume and presume is that, it's going to take, I don't know. He's there. It's an open application is what it seems like. He didn't immediately promote someone like Kaiso, or however you even say
Keesal. Like seesaw, but
yeah, you see it written all the time. Some obvious other former Boise State guys like Zach Hill, who's at Arizona State. Nothing happened immediately. So that would lead me to believe that, that it's an open application and open process. So we'll see where it goes from here. Obviously, the details of these things are kept under wrap at the beginning, and then obviously a year later, we all kind of see what really went down. It's one of those where it all comes out in retrospective, kind of like Brent Venables now talking about Auburn. But yeah, I don't know. Other than that, it's just a waiting game. I mean, we'll wait and see what he does. But I mean, you would think he would want to depart from what he had. I mean, you wouldn't lose Mike Bobo and then just get a different kind of Mike Bobo, right? So obviously the schools of thought are he could go to someone he's familiar with from Boise, or you try to go after a young guy, someone who's trying to set the world on fire. You know what I mean? I don't know if respected veteran is really the route he's going to go in, right?
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing to me, and we'll get into this in a few minutes when you talk about recruiting, on one hand, you would kind of want to have somebody to sort of help you put together this class, but I don't think, you should consider Auburn dead in the water because they don't have the play caller because, there will be coordinators that can really recruit, but, you're not hiring a guy to say, this is my ace recruiter. Like, no. You got guys on the staff that can help you in that regard.
Coordinators are really mercenary, aren't they? It's weird.
Seems like it. I mean,
weird.
Look even at a guy like Mike Bobo, who he was at Georgia for a long time. Then he goes across the country to Colorado State. Again, it's an opportunity to be a head coach. You know, you understand, like, hey, if I can go be a head coach, then I'm going to go do it. Right. Then you go to South Carolina, and then a year later at Auburn. So you're right. And these guys are, you know, there's all kinds of jockeying between guys and just seeing that, you know, that's going to happen. So
it's almost like a coordinator, like is one of the, like, it's almost like the head coach and the assistants are more of the general manager, and that they're the roster management because they're the ones recruiting, and the coordinators just have to work with what they got. Usually in a lot of places, it's weird, but as far as recruiting, yeah, no, I'm with you. We haven't seen any major decommit because of Bobo leaving. And I think that's pretty par for the course in today's college football. It's weird, but that's just how it kind of is now, is that, you know, the assistants do all the recruiting, the position coaches, I should say, do all the recruiting, and then the coordinators just like move in and out, which is weird, but that's how it is, because the coordinator is always sometimes you get one of those longtime coordinators who sticks with the head coach for a long time, but a lot of times they're jockeying for their next job, and there's a lot of movement there. But yeah, man, signing day is coming up, Jordan. And this is, I don't know. I feel like I always say, like, well, we'll see in the future how this thing's going to go. We're really now about 7 days from really kind of knowing, is this thing going to start picking up momentum, or is Brian Harsin heading into another year zero?
Yeah. And, you know, like you said, we're recording this on a Wednesday, so it's a week. Got a week to go before the early signing period, which, as we have hit on this podcast many times, it's the signing day. And then the later one's the late signing day. Most kids on the whole wind up signing during this 3-day period starting December 15th this year. Looking at the numbers really quickly, according to 247 Sports, Auburn is 13th in the SEC as far as their class goes. Justin, why is 13th? Excuse me, I'm getting emotional just talking. Why is 13th in the SEC significant?
There's only 14 teams in the conference.
Because there's 14 teams. That's not.
And one of them's Vanderbilt.
You're behind Vanderbilt. The only team right now is Florida, who, with the coaching change, with Dan Mullen out, Billy Napier coming in, I know even today that they had a receiver decommit. So you've had a little bit of movement there. You've got to find a way to build your way up. There's still guys out there, and we can talk a little bit, you know, in depth about this if we want to. There are guys in there that we know they are still very well in play, very much in play for. Justin Williams, a running back, that's a 4-star. Yesterday, he announced that he's between Tennessee and Auburn. Really, I think the biggest guy that they seem to be really in the mix for is Darius Clemens, a receiver from Oregon, who you would have to think, total speculation on my part, with Mario leaving. It was Oregon, Penn State, and Auburn as his top 3 teams. You would think Mario leaving Oregon would really help Auburn's chances with Darius. So they've got guys, and, you know, we've talked about there's talent within this group. We've seen a lot of these local kids, and we know that they can make plays, but you got to build around it. You got to get more guys. You've got a good bit of quality, but you want to add more to this class. 13 commits truly is not a lot. Not when you compare it. Scrolling up, 21 commits for Alabama, 24 for Georgia, 21 for Texas A&M, and this is one of A&M's best classes since Jimbo's been there. You got to get guys, and you've got an opportunity with some of these coaching changes. I know that there's at least one LSU commit they're trying to go hard after. I think he might be a cornerback. You've got guys like Shamar James, who I think is a linebacker that was committed to Florida. Obviously, they made that coaching change. You got to try to finish strong. TJ Dudley, a guy from Montgomery Catholic that I've watched a few years since they're in the same region as Reeltown and Dadeville, he was an Oregon commit. So all of a sudden, he's a guy that if you want him, try to build up that linebacker position, you could potentially go get, or at least try to go after. But you got to get guys. You know, as the class stands, obviously you want to keep who you have and get them to sign on the dotted line, but you have to add to this. This isn't enough if you want to keep up with, again, sort of the theme of the podcast when we've talked about Auburn football. Caught between Alabama and Georgia, you've got to get the guys that can help you not only keep up with them, but, try to stay right there with them and try to, trade wins over the coming years and show that you're just as capable as two of the teams that are in the college football playoff.
Yeah, I think at Rivals, Brian Matthews posted something today that was like a hypothetical game. Like, if all of these targets come to Auburn, if they all do, Auburn could land a top 10 class. Now, it's a little unrealistic because they've got like 3 running backs who probably aren't going to all come at once in that class in this hypothetical game he's playing. But I mean, it's their big targets are there, and they're in some top 3s, like you said. So they just have to hope for it to end as well as they can, because then whatever gaps are left, you got to go back to the portal, which is something they did last year. And here's the thing, man, Jordan, last year he had an excuse. Because he wasn't here. It wasn't his first class. This year, there's no excuses. There's no excuses for where Auburn is. And for me, I think Auburn's a top 15 program nationally. So I think Auburn should have a top 15 signing class. So, I mean, and it's tricky. It's kind of like we talk about softball with the SEC is so powerful. And the same way in football recruiting, you can be in the top 20, but you can still be like 11th in your conference, which is not very encouraging either. So you got to get the dudes, man. I've said it on this podcast before. I'm going to repeat it. If I used to think that football was 99% recruiting, and now I think it's 100% recruiting. So it's here we are again. We'll see finally what a lot of what the future will hold for Auburn football, whether there's some real momentum here, whether it's okay, beat Ole Miss at home. Hey, hung tough in the Iron Bowl, really impressed some people. This is more of what we're trending toward. Or is it back to the portal again, which is not what you want, but it's where it's going to be. It could be the reality of Auburn football here in a few days.
Yeah, the door is open, like you said, for them to finish strong, which truthfully with that first class, which was sort of an abbreviated class, I think you could say that they did finish fairly strong. I mean, it was looking dire there for a while, and they were able to get some guys. And, for a sort of a stopgap class, was a fairly solid thing given how quickly it all came together as far as Harsin and company. But this is your first real class. This is your chance to show that you can recruit and you can go get these guys. We know that there's guys there that they're very much in the mix for, but it doesn't really mean a whole lot. One, if you don't finish. Two, if you find yourself, finishing like 13th in the SEC, it's very comparable to when we talked about them losing Mississippi State. And, you very bluntly, which I think was very accurate, saying that Auburn should beat the Mississippi schools. Like, Auburn's a better program than the Mississippi schools. Well, we should see that in recruiting too, that they should be able to have a class that's superior to some of those guys. It's going to be harder with a guy like Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss, especially recruiting really well. But if Auburn is going to be among the best of the best in the SEC, starts right now. And as much as you want to maybe use the portal and, they may be able to do that and fill some needs, because there are definitely some needs on this roster. If the linebackers, if Zacoby, it really sounds like just from what he's posted on social media and stuff like that, he's getting ready to move on. Right. You would think maybe Chandler doesn't come back. Owen potentially could decide to go pro. We haven't heard anything as far as that goes. I mean, you're losing. I wrote about this earlier this week. If all 3 of those guys leave, that's 201 tackles from this that are gone. And you don't really, unless you just really believe in Cam Riley and Wesley Steiner, but neither one of those guys are proven. Maybe you go to the portal to try to fix those holes, but those holes are there. You got to fill them some way or another, and they're not going to go away. If you just think, well, we can kind of ease our way through it, you're not going to get that opportunity in the SEC. You're also not going to get that opportunity next year playing Penn State pretty early on in the year. You're going to get exposed really, really quickly. So it's going to be very important to see what they do through this signing class for the high school guys, and then if they decide that they need to fill a few more holes through the portal.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, man, we'll see. I don't know. I feel like during the season it was like, all right, we'll know in a month where things are. Here we are again. We'll know in a week a lot more about where things are. And I mean, we have a tendency when me and you talk to go big picture, and I really do think we'll know a lot more of where Brian Harson's tenure is going. I mean, does he? It would take, I think, two really good recruiting classes. I mean, if he could get two top 10 classes, then maybe he does get into year 3 without the results next year. But if he doesn't have a top 15 class, and then he goes into next year and, has a really tough time, like you say, without linebackers, without an offensive line, it's looking like a really tough year. Alabama and Georgia both on the road. It's gonna be a really hard time for him in 2022. Yeah, I mean, but if you at least, people do pay attention to recruiting. The people on the inside and the people with money, they know it's all about recruiting now. That's the landscape of college football right now. And so if you can land a top 10 class, if you can land a top 15 class, you've got a chance. So, and like you said, this is the signing day. It used to be in December. It used to be, February. That now that's picking up the pieces. I thought someone said it. Someone on Twitter, it might have been AU Nerd, said it, like Auburn's heading toward an old school signing day. That seems right. Like there's a lot of people. It used to be you go into signing day and all the players really liked playing up who their top 3 was, and that was the hat dance, right? And it kind of went away a little bit and with this December class, December signing period, everyone just wants to be a firm commitment and let everyone know where they are. So it's not as many signing day. It's not as much of a signing day spectacular, but for Auburn this year, it is, because they're coming on late for a lot of these guys. And let's be honest, the reason is because the recruiting didn't go well. Let's be honest. They shouldn't be going into December 8th and you're trying to pick scraps from Florida and LSU. Not good to be in this position, but the path is there to salvage this thing and correct course. Much like Carson, firing 2 coaches, you're trying to correct course. So here's your chance. And like you said, it's going to be like that. I think it was A Nerd said, going to be a old school signing day, a nervous, nail-biting signing day for Auburn, where you're literally watching some hat dances and watching it. And if you're an Auburn fan, hoping he picks up the orange and blue hat. So buckle up, man. It's gonna be a big one.
Buckle up for sure, and I have no doubt that we'll probably have a podcast at the end of signing day, kind of wrapping up everything that happened. We'll have all kinds of content from signing day, and two, it's important to remember with this early period, it's a 3-day period. So you might end Wednesday, which is typically when most of the guys are going to sign. You still have that window, and I'm thinking even back. I think that was during February that Jarquez Hunter didn't sign until until that Friday, I should say.
Sure.
So, you may end Wednesday and think it's dire, but there's still that opportunity for a few more guys to jump on board. Before we get, moving along and off the topic of football, we haven't talked about this yet, Justin. We got a bowl game. Got a bowl game close to home. The Birmingham Bowl on December 28th. That's up in Birmingham. I don't know if you could figure that out from the name of the bowl game. They are going to be playing Houston, a pretty good Houston team that I believe is 11-2.
Yeah.
Holgerson's guys played for the AAC championship. Came up short 35-20 against Cincinnati. A pretty good Houston team that has shown that, much like you would expect from a Dana Holgerson team, Dana is off of the Mike Leach coaching tree, that they can score points. What's sort of your read on this matchup, and sort of what you're expecting from Auburn? Because again, as we talk, we don't really know. We haven't really heard anything about players opting out of this bowl game. If certain guys who might be looking at the draft are going to play. But what's your initial read on this matchup with Houston?
Storyline no one's talking about, Jordan, the former team of Zach Etheridge. How about that? Yeah.
True. Good point.
Zach Etheridge Bowl. Yeah, man, we don't know a lot, like you said, because we don't know who's available for Auburn, because you had sit-outs, you had a lot of opt-outs last year, and obviously you've got a guy like Roger, who is a highly touted NFL draft prospect. I don't think he's going to raise his stock playing Houston, You got, I mean, we don't even know TJ Finley's injury status. He might be hurt for the game. Grant Lloyd might be the starter going in. We don't know. So hard to make a read this early. But you know, I said one of the projections at one point was Auburn versus Texas Tech. And I was like, oh boy, this was shortly after the Mississippi State game. I'm like, oh no, air raid again. Air raid is going to be brutal. And if Houston, you know, if Holgerson watches a lot of Mike Leach stuff from that Mississippi State game, Houston's air raid, you know, Houston's passing offense, I don't think they're quite as pass happy. But they could give Auburn a lot of fits. You hate that. You hate to be pinned against anyone from the Mike Leach coaching tree right now after how that game went, because it didn't go good for Auburn. But other than that, you know, Auburn home game. Obviously, a lot of Auburn fans in the Birmingham area. They can all go. They can go see the new stadium that we got a sneak peek of when we went to Super 7. Cool venue. I really like it. Right next to the Top Golf up there. Maybe we can hit some dingers over there when we're up there. But otherwise, small venue. Reminds me a lot of Auburn Arena, built purposefully compact, which is good. Perfect size for UAB. But yeah, gonna be tough. And you know, I think everyone who hated Gus Malzahn for not caring about bowl games and focusing on the next year, I mean, they're probably going to give Brian Harsin a pass, because he should probably not be focused on this bowl game. He should be focused on the future right now too.
I agree. You know, I'm very interested looking at this game. It's hard to give a read on, you know, who you think will win, not knowing who might opt out, not knowing for sure on TJ Finley. I will say 247 Nathan King, he reported on Tuesday night that didn't sound like TJ's injury is you know, severe, like he should be expected to play. So shout out to Nathan for kind of filling us in on that. The big thing I would say at this point, you know, not knowing who's going to opt out, that I think Houston got a little fat on their record on bad teams, because really the two best teams they played was Texas Tech, who you mentioned. They played them in the opener, and I think it was like 38-20. Texas Tech wound up winning that game. And then really the best other team that they played was Cincinnati, who, granted, Houston did hang with them for about 3 quarters, and then Cincinnati put it away. And something that Houston's really known for this year is their run defense. And let me tell you, brother, Cincinnati had no trouble running on them. They ran for like 7.5 yards a carry. So I kind of think, you know, that record for Houston's a little bit, you know, fattened up by playing teams like East Carolina and Tulane and some of those squads. So, you know, I think it'll be a pretty good competitive contest. But I think if you look at that record and you go, oh, man, let's hit the brakes a little bit. I think it's inflated just a teeny tiny bit.
Yeah. But hey, man, it's a team that knows how to win. But no, yeah, I mean, as a wise man once said, they ain't played nobody, Paul.
Truth. And we'll have all kinds of coverage off of that too. And we're still waiting.
As far as true today, as he said then.
Forever and ever, let those words stand.
Yeah. I was gonna see if they played Western Carolina, because I was up there in Catamount country this past weekend, but they didn't play them. They only played Eastern Carolina.
Yeah. No shout out with the Catamounts. I hate to see that.
I'm gonna blow my nose and cough. Let's keep going.
Yes, I'll just go ahead and talk a little bit while Justin does that. Auburn men's basketball still riding high. This has been kind of an off week for the most part. I'm sure that there's still been practices and things like that. But Auburn's coming off of a very convincing win over Yale on Saturday. Pretty much had the week off as far as no games. They're getting ready to play Nebraska, mighty Nebraska Cornhuskers, on Saturday in Holiday Hoopsgiving, part of a little holiday tournament that's going to be in State Farm Arena in Atlanta. It should make for a pretty interesting game. You know, I think Nebraska is still trying to kind of find their way back and trying to just be competitive in the Big Ten. You would think Auburn should be in good shape, and you would think a lot of these guys on this Auburn roster are going to be really excited to be playing in Atlanta. You know, it's basically a home game for guys like Jabari and Walker and KB. So I think it's going to be a pretty exciting event. It'll be Saturday morning when they're playing Nebraska. And you got to from what we've seen, where this Auburn basketball team is right now. You're starting to see them kind of gel together, still a very inexperienced team, but you're seeing the flashes. You're seeing why Bruce would say things like that this team is capable of making a Final Four run. You can see it, but it's just a matter of can they finish strong? You hope that once Alan Flanagan comes back, that they are set, that they're ready to go. Again, shout out again to Nathan King. I think 247 reported that he's back at practice, that Flanagan is, on the mend after that Achilles surgery in early September. That's going to be huge. And that's going to be a big test for these guys once he comes back, trying to just sort of fill out what this lineup needs to look like with Allen, because there's no doubt that this team's going to be more dangerous with Allen on the floor. It's just going to be a matter of kind of figuring out what that actually looks like.
He definitely needs a game back before SEC play. And looking at it, you've got 4 games. So probably not. I wouldn't expect him to play in this game, but maybe North Alabama, St. Louis, or Murray State. But yeah, man, everyone loves what is this? Is this an SEC Big Ten challenge, or is it just a game? I don't know. But everyone loves
I think it's just a mismatch, if I'm not mistaken.
Holiday Hoopsgiving. All right. So 10:30 in the morning. My goodness, that is too early for basketball, Jordan. But there we go. Hey, we don't have to worry about deadline. We're out of there at noon. It'll be fun. The women's team recently played Oklahoma State in a SEC Big 12 challenge. So you always like to play another marquee game, another, again, I don't even know what Nebraska's basketball uniforms look like. They're one of those teams like Penn State where I can't even picture them playing basketball. But hey, man, Auburn should probably go over there to Atlanta and expect to win. And as long as they play right, I think they can. It's been interesting to watch this team because they've had lulls. I mean, like obviously, I think that first half of Central Florida didn't go so well, right? But they're already correcting course mid-game, which is a skill that I think takes a lot of teams a long time to learn. When you have a quote unquote young team, which every team in college basketball is young now because of one and dones and such. But if you have a young team where everyone's still trying to gel, you can go up and down. You can be inconsistent, cold streaks and hot streaks. So far, I mean, they're 7-1 or maybe 8-1, 7-1. And, they have cold halves, not cold games, certainly not cold weeks. So that's an encouraging sign. And, I go back, man, I haven't watched this team in a long time. I guess I was on vacation for Yale. We had Super 7 for UCF. I just didn't watch that Syracuse game. I don't know why. And then last game I really watched was UConn. And then Loyola Chicago's on Thanksgiving. I didn't watch that. So yeah, but you've seen them more than me. It's been a long time since I've seen them. I thought they had, the makings of a good defensive team at the time. But yeah, man, I don't know. What do you most want to see? I mean, they handled Yale pretty good, so it's hard to nitpick at that game, right? But what do you maybe most want to see from them playing Nebraska?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is just consistency through 2 halves. I know that seems kind of very straightforward, but you saw that against Yale. There was never really a point where you were like, oh, Yale's getting back in. Like they had one little run, like 10 minutes into the first half, and then Auburn was like, nope, not going to be a thing. But early in the season, you did see that with a few halves. I know that first half against Yale Monroe was a little sloppy. I think just consistency through a whole game. Again, it's not to say we haven't seen that, but just see that continue and see that not be an issue where you see teams, see players that just think, all right, we're here. We're going to just roll through this. But they've shown that they're very capable of putting together a complete game. So that'd probably be my biggest thing is just seeing that complete game against, what should be an inferior roster. I don't really know much about Nebraska other than Fred Hoiberg's there. I don't think that, just knowing what I know about this Auburn team, Auburn should be able to win this one and not really have to sweat it out. But if you show up and think, well, we're here, we're going to win by 30, you might be in for a surprise. So that's my biggest thing is just playing consistently throughout the game.
Ladies and gentlemen, corn. That's gonna be us on Saturday. Man, early game. Am I going to set an alarm for that?
I was gonna say you might not be able to watch that one either. You may
especially
hit that on the DVR
on my recovery schedule. Man, dude, I've been
getting up at 10 a.m. for a basketball. Getting up at 10 a.m. What am I, a farmer? What's going on?
Bro, this week I've just been slipping in and out of consciousness random hours. It's been a lot of fun. But yeah. That one's
well, before we get out of here,
I'll be better by then.
Yes, fingers crossed. You can sleep until now at 10 a.m. Saturday.
I wish.
Before we get out of here, let's talk a little SUNY.
Okay.
I'll start it off, and you can kind of talk about the hardware that she picked up earlier this week. But got to watch her and the rest of the gymnastics team on Friday at their preview meet that they had. Was very impressed, one, with the crowd. They showed up. I'd give a shout out to Auburn's fans who showed up and made the most of what was essentially a scrimmage. None of the scores were kept, anything like that. They were loud. SUNY got to hear it. Shout out to SUNY when she started off her first event was beam, and she fell off when able to kind of finish her routine or pull it off the way she wanted to. She got back on, finished the routine, then went on to uneven bars and performed very, very well. And she talked about afterwards the pressure she puts on herself, that she, was pretty nervous. And you think about that as a scrimmage, but you think also about her competitive nature. I mean, what you'd have to do to be an Olympic, not only an Olympian, but a gold medalist at that. So I was really impressed to sort of hear her talk about, the pressure she puts on herself, hearing Jeff talk about, like she was being a little, courteous to herself. She's had like 4 practices in like 3 months, something like that. But it was neat to sort of see her, especially in person. That's the first time I've ever seen SUNY in person compete. And it was fun. And it was a nice preview for what I'm sure we'll see and what should be some fun atmospheres. I don't know if I'm going to cover any meets, but if I'm not covering them, I may buy me a ticket because that was fun. That was really fun to see in person.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, she's completely out of practice. That's why she only did 2 events. She did beam and bars, did not do floor or vault. And obviously vault's something you really got to practice. Get out there and get yourself hurt. But yeah, I mean, from what I saw, your eye in the sky phone videos. But yeah, a little fall on beam, not to be unexpected, because I know all she worked on in California, it was only a little bit, was bars, and what she said was that your hands are the first thing you lose. So like bars is the most like hands event. So she was just keeping bars in rhythm, because that's like, I don't know, I guess your legs can be rested for a couple months and still go where you want them to go, but your hands, it's really finicky. So she's had only practiced bars, and obviously her bar routine was very watered down. Like her dismount was obviously just like a one flip, but she had a tough connection in there that she makes look really easy. She'll go in from one skill to the next, whereas another girl would have to like do the skill and then like go around, regroup herself, and then go to the next one. And she's just like boom, boom, boom. So she did have a tough connection in there. Which if you don't know anything about gymnastics, that's one of the things. If you're like me, if you're like like both of us, but yeah, like me too, and don't know anything about gymnastics.
Anyone following me, just pay attention to the fact I just posted the video. I was like, I have no idea. I'd love to know, but yeah, continue.
Here it is. See for yourself. But yeah, no, yeah, good show, and pretty cool to just see her in that Auburn leotard, after everyone doubted and everyone wondered. So yeah, and then season starts in January. So yeah, I missed that one. I missed her first press conference was when I was at a wedding in August, and then I missed this one too on vacation for my dad's birthday. So we missed both of those, but we'll be there for the regular season. But yeah, and then Tuesday night, what day is it? It's Wednesday. Tuesday night, she goes down to Hollywood, Florida, and wins a Sports Illustrated Awards Female Athlete of the Year. So there you go. And I don't know, when are the ESPYs? I wonder if she might be getting invited to that one. I don't know. Obviously, the ESPYs is the one you hear more about, but at SI Awards, it was a real thing. Dan Marino was there. Tom Brady was there. Like, Tom Brady accepted in person, and so did she. So that's pretty good company to be in. And then Caleb Dressler won Male Athlete of the Year. He was a swimmer, fellow gold medalist along with Suni. And then Billie Jean King won like their Lifetime Achievement Award. So that's a really good company to be in. I mean, when you're accepting in person along with Tom Brady and another gold medalist and then Billie Jean King, hey man, that's nothing wrong with that. So so she won that, and you can read about it on the website, transcribe some of what she said, and you can watch it. I think it's on Sports Illustrated's YouTube too. So just another day for her. Her insane 2021 continues, and hopefully in 2022 she can, I know she loves gymnastics and wants to get back to that. So I think pretty soon she's going to get back into gym mode and getting back to doing what she loves to do the most.
Yeah, I wanted to shout out, you talked about how you're not sure how all that happened. Somebody had tweeted earlier Wednesday, Suni Lee did all of this in just the last 6 months, and it was photos, of her Olympic medal and then Dancing with the Stars, and Suni shared it and said, I still don't know how. So I all of us, Suni.
Yeah, Met Gala, all of it. Crazy.
Yes, she's like, I don't know either. It's crazy, but it's been fun to watch, no doubt about it.
Need a nap. Yeah, pretty much.
Well, all right, Justin, let's get out of here on that. Appreciate everybody watching. Appreciate everybody listening. We'll have more content in the days to come. Coordinator news, recruiting news, bowl news, people playing, people not playing, people opting out, people transfer portal, all of that good stuff. We'll have all kinds of content through the next few days. Auburn basketball, anything else that just comes up, man, we'll be all over it. And it's fun to keep it going and fun to keep turning out content. So we're going to get out of here. For Justin Lee, I'm Jordan Hill. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Until next time, take care.
Speaking of needing a nap, I'm going to go take a nap.